around um, I sent a message. I got a pop-up. I got a new connection. Someone had done a DNA test, and now we're getting into, um, you know, July 2020. So we're a couple months deep into this ancestry search, and then all of a sudden, a second, third cousin pops up, right? And so, being like a second cousin or a first-time cousin once removed, um, you start one. You have to learn about how cousins work and how someone is your third cousin or fourth cousin, or how they can be removed once, twice, or three times, or second cousin once removed. It gets pretty crazy to do that sort of familiar math. There was like some charts that I would always have to go reference and be like, how are they my second cousin? Because sometimes you might have a first cousin or like um, a second cousin, but because of your family relationships, you're as close as first cousins with them because they're close to you in age, or like your dad is first cousins with them, and so they're just like, hey, that's cousin Sean, but really cousin Sean isn't cousin Sean, he's second cousin Sean, but no one really cares. It's just everybody's kind of cousin. And so Joan, I'd reached out to Joan July 2010. Hey, I got 3 grandparents done. Thank you. July 13th goes by. Hey, did you get my previous message? August goes by. Hey, Joan, we shared like a decent amount of DNA segments. I'd like to see how we connect. She was like my closest key. So September 17th, 2020 comes by, months after that, my initial, and she says, Tom, sorry for the delay in responding. I just found out where my son wrote down my ID and password for Ancestry. Unfortunately, I lost my home in one of the California wildfires, and all my tree information is now in ash. I might be some time before I can gather up information again on my family tree. When I'm able, I'll post my family tree. And my concern was, when I was looking through cousins, was when you're a second cousin or first cousin, because the DNA said we shared these amount of centimorgans, 309 centimorgans, which is quite a bit across 12 segments. That being a second cousin, she's either like a generation above me in some, or a generation below me in some. So me being in my 40s, she's either going to be like 80, or another second cousin I have, third cousin, would be like 10, 11. So after I got this response back and her son writing down finding out where her ID and password were, I knew that like this person was probably going to be in like her 80s. So that was going to be tough. I responded immediately. Thank you so much for responding. I can't imagine what you're going through. Um, if you could just build out your tree, I'd be so interested. Just doing the first couple. And so November goes by, December goes by, January goes by, February 2021. Hey, Joan, reaching out again just to see if I could share. June 20th, 21. Hey, Joan, is there anyone can help me out? At this point in time, by July 30th, 2021, I I I'd gone through some things to try to track down a Joan Hunter in California. I found a site called like Been Verified. There's been there was a number of sites that would allow me to find all the Joan Hunters in California, and all of them between different ages, and track, what emails were best to find them, what cell phones they had recently been using, what their last 3 addresses were, um, and really crazy intrusive data. And so it did feel like I was trying to do something good for myself, but at the same time there was like this big open, you know, investigation that I was doing that felt very intrusive into other people's lives. So it was like I wanted to know about them, I wanted to find them, and at the same time I didn't want to feel like I was stalking them, because that's essentially, it felt like what I was doing when you're going through all this data and you're looking through um, all these different people, and you're trying to put together different circumstances or scenarios of where they could be. Um, so it seems like a tough balance when you're searching. But for me, I was in good terms. I wasn't trying to like track someone down to to manipulate them or get something off of them. I just was looking for information about where I was from. And it dropped off and it went nowhere. And I was it was tough. So I would take breaks in my research because it just seems like I was getting close to something, and I was so close to something, and then I would get some information that was like, you were so far off. and and this rabbit hole ended, and you'd have to go all the way back up to the beginning. And I don't know how many family trees I made on pieces of paper. I don't know how many notes I took. I don't how many dates, trying to line up who would be what age at what point in time when they had kids. Um, it was like a tough way to try to figure out this information. Um, Eventually, I went back to that Joan Hunter, the one person that was on my dad's side that I had the highest connection with, the second and third um, centimorgans with, 300 centimorgans. Everybody else was fourth cousins. Nobody was really answering fourth cousins. Some people would be like, hey, I just looked at your family tree and nothing's there. Or, hope it's all well, but we're, not related. Um, and, some people are in Ancestry sometimes they're not. Sometimes they'll come back on like 2 years later and be like, hey, I just saw your message, but can I help you out? And be like, I already went down that rabbit hole and found out that it wasn't going to work. But August 8th, 2021, I decided to change instead of going after Jones, like the contact, I went and looked at who we also had shared matches with. And we had about 5 shared matches, which isn't a lot. And I went to a couple of them seemed pretty close, and I had reached out to them like, hey, if you could fill out your tree in this way. And nobody was really responding. They seemed kind of like young, maybe it was second, third cousins, but they were maybe on the young end of it. And so I looked at one, and there was a person that was connected to Joan Hunter named Zoe. I don't know if it's Zoe or Zoe Estrada. And when you look at Ancestry DNA, you can look at how the matches are. So you can click on anyone that's matched with you, and you could look at mine. You click on mine, and it shows like, hey, he's 33% Irish, and he's 27%, Swedish, and 2% German, and something. So you could look at other people or how they're connected, and you can see how, others' DNA kind of matches up to yours. And so I clicked on the Zoe Estrada, and her tree, the Estrada family tree, like she had a very interesting DNA. It was like we shared like 25 centimorgans across 3 segments, which is not very much at all. And so when I looked at hers and the ethnicity that we shared, I was 36% Irish. She was 1% Irish. I was 9% German. She was 12% German. 6% Northern England, and then 4% Scotland, 15% Scotland for Zoe. But then she has 29% Indigenous America, Mexico, 20% Spain, 6% Basques, 5% Portugal, 5% Indigenous Americas North, 3% Senegal, 1% Sardinia. Like, she has a crazy mix of like ethnicity. Um, and so what that made me think of is like, wait a minute, I don't need to know half of her grandparents. I only need to know like her Scottish grandparents. That's it. I don't. She doesn't even probably have an Irish grandparent, really. Like that's. So I just who is your Scottish grandparent? So I reached out to Zoe, and I said, hey, the story, and I'm looking for my grandparents. He was born in 1925 in Los Angeles. Um, I I'm just looking for like this side of your family. Um, I said also at the beginning, I said, I've been on this 3-year ancestry. I said, besides with each other being connected, we both shared DNA with a Joan Hunter, who was my least second cousin on that side. Though I was able to connect with her in one ancestry message, she had just had a house burned down in California wildfire. She's been out of touch since. What I recently learned, though, is that you might be able to help me as much as she could. Would you be able to build out your family tree? And so that was like August 8th. So a couple weeks go by, and August 24th. Hey, Thomas, yes, Joan Hunter is my grandmother on my mother's side.